June 14, 1998, Delta Center, Salt Lake City, Utah. 35-year-old Michael Jordan stood at half court, the ball in his hands, 18.9 seconds remaining in Game 6 of the NBA Finals. The Chicago Bulls trailed the Utah Jazz 86-85. His running mate, Scottie Pippen, had spent most of the game in the locker room, his back so badly injured from a first-quarter dunk that he could barely move. Ron Harper was playing with the flu. The Bulls were exhausted, playing their 107th game of the season, counting playoffs. 13 games passed when most teams had gone home. Game 7 in Salt Lake City against a Jazz team desperate for revenge was not an option. This was it. Win now or watch Karl Malone and John Stockton, two Hall of Famers who'd never won a championship, finally get their ring. Jordan dribbled slowly up the court, letting the clock tick down. The 19,911 Jazz fans in the Delta Center were screaming, sensing victory, believing this was finally their year. Then, with 10 seconds remaining, Jordan crossed over defender Bryon Russell with a quick dribble move, accompanied by what appeared to be a slight push that officials didn't call, rose up at the free throw line extended, and released a 20-foot jumper. The ball hung in the air for what seemed like an eternity. Jordan's right hand stayed elevated, frozen in his follow-through, watching. The ball dropped through the net with 5.2 seconds remaining. Bulls 87, Jazz 86. The Delta Center fell silent. 43 seconds earlier, Jordan had stolen the ball from Karl Malone in the post, stripping it cleanly and sprinting up court to set up this moment. Now, after hitting the shot, Jordan backpedaled down the court, hands still raised, creating the most iconic image in basketball history. One final defensive stand, John Stockton's desperation three-pointer missing at the buzzer, and the Bulls had won their 6th championship in 8 years. Jordan had scored 45 points, playing 44 of 48 minutes, and the greatest player who ever lived had delivered the greatest ending imaginable, the last shot of his Bulls career, winning the title before walking away at the peak of his powers. This is the story of how a 35-year-old Michael Jordan carried an injured, exhausted Bulls team through the 1998 playoffs despite knowing it would be his final season in Chicago, how he dominated the finals despite Karl Malone being named league MVP, how he stole the ball from Malone and hit the championship-winning shot in the final minute, and why June 14, 1998 remains the most dramatic ending to any NBA dynasty 26 years later. Michael Jeffrey Jordan was born February 17, 1963 in Brooklyn, New York, but grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina, where his father, James, worked as a supervisor at an electric plant, and his mother, Dolores, worked at a bank. As a teenager, Michael was cut from the varsity basketball team at Laney High School as a sophomore, a rejection that fueled a competitive fire that would define his career. He made the team as a junior, developed into a star, and earned a scholarship to the University of North Carolina. At UNC, Jordan hit the game-winning shot as a freshman in the 1982 NCAA championship game against Georgetown, launching his reputation as a clutch performer. He was drafted 3rd overall by the Chicago Bulls in 1984 behind Hakeem Olajuwon and Sam Bowie, a draft position he'd use as motivation for his entire career. From 1984 to 1993, Jordan transformed from exciting rookie to the greatest player in basketball, winning 3 consecutive championships from 1991 to 1993 alongside Scottie Pippen under coach Phil Jackson. But in October 1993, Jordan shocked the sports world by retiring at age 30, citing loss of desire to compete and mourning the July murder of his father James, who'd been killed by 2 teenagers during a robbery. Jordan spent 17 months playing minor league baseball for the Birmingham Barons, pursuing his late father's dream of watching him play professional baseball. The experiment was noble but unsuccessful. In March 1995, Jordan returned to the NBA, announcing simply, "I'm back," in a 2-word press release. The 1995 playoff return ended badly, with the Bulls losing to the Orlando Magic in the Eastern Conference semifinals. Orlando's young stars Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway exposed Jordan's rustiness after 17 months away. Jordan, who'd never accepted defeat gracefully, spent the summer of 1995 training obsessively, determined to reclaim his championship form. The 1995-96 season was Jordan's statement of dominance. The Bulls went 72-10, the best regular season record in NBA history. They swept through the playoffs, winning the championship 6-2 over Seattle. Jordan won his 8th scoring title, 4th MVP award, and 4th Finals MVP. At age 36, he'd proven the retirement was an aberration. He was still the best player alive. The Bulls won again in 1997, defeating the Utah Jazz 6-2 in the finals. Game 5 of that series became legendary as the flu game, where Jordan scored 38 points despite suffering from what was later revealed to be food poisoning, not flu, possibly from bad pizza the night before. The image of Jordan collapsing into Pippen's arms after hitting the game winner became iconic, proof of his competitive will. But entering the 1997-98 season, everything was falling apart. Phil Jackson announced this would be his final season coaching the Bulls, regardless of results. General manager Jerry Krause, who'd built the championship teams, had a fractured relationship with Jackson and wanted to rebuild. Pippen, frustrated by being underpaid relative to his contributions, had demanded a trade. Jordan, 35 years old and showing signs of age, knew this would be his last season with the Bulls. The 1997-98 campaign was dubbed The Last Dance, a final tour before the Dynasty dissolved. Despite the turmoil, the Bulls won 62 games, capturing the Eastern Conference's top seed. Jordan won his 10th scoring title, averaging 28.7 points at age 35, proof his competitive fire still burned. But the playoffs were brutal. The Bulls needed 7 games to eliminate the New Jersey Nets in the first round. They beat the Charlotte Hornets 4-1 in the second round, then faced the Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals. That series went 7 games, with the Bulls winning Game 7 by just 3 points. They'd survived, but barely. The finals opponent was familiar, the Utah Jazz, making their 2nd consecutive finals appearance. The Jazz featured Karl Malone, the league's reigning MVP, who'd averaged 27 points and 10.3 rebounds during the regular season, and John Stockton, the all-time assists and steals leader. The Jazz had won a franchise record 62 games. They were co-favorites with the Bulls. Many experts picked Utah, believing Jordan's aging Bulls were vulnerable, and Utah was owed redemption after losing in 1997.
The series opened June 3rd at the United Center in Chicago. The Jazz won Game 1 in overtime 88-85, stealing home court advantage. Jordan had scored 33 points but missed a potential game winner at the end of regulation. The Bulls dominated Games 2, 3, and 4, taking a commanding 3-1 series lead. Jordan was brilliant, averaging 32.8 points through 4 games. The Bulls were 1 win from their 6th championship. All they had to do was close out at home in Game 5. But Game 5 on June 12th was a disaster. Jordan missed a potential game-winning 3-pointer at the buzzer, and the Jazz won 83-81, sending the series back to Utah. The Bulls had blown their chance to clinch at home. Now they'd have to win in Salt Lake City, where the Jazz hadn't lost a playoff game all postseason, and where the altitude and deafening crowd made the Delta Center one of the NBA's toughest road environments. Making matters worse, Scottie Pippen was barely able to play. In the opening minutes of Game 6, Pippen threw down a dunk that aggravated a severe back injury. He spent most of the game in the locker room receiving treatment, playing just 26 minutes and scoring only 8 points. Without Pippen's defensive prowess and secondary scoring, Jordan would have to carry the Bulls alone. June 14, 1998, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Game 6 tip-off at the Delta Center. The atmosphere was electric. Nearly 20,000 Jazz fans packed the arena, believing this was their night. The Jazz were favored. Pippen was hurt. The Bulls looked vulnerable. If Utah won, Game 7 would be played 2 days later in Salt Lake City. The Jazz would almost certainly be favorites to win that game, too. Everything was set up for Utah's first championship in franchise history. The first quarter was competitive, with both teams trading baskets. Pippen hit an early hook shot despite obvious pain, but his mobility was limited.
Jordan was aggressive, attacking the basket, drawing fouls, keeping the Bulls close. The quarter ended Bulls 22, Jazz 25. The Bulls trailed by 3 but were hanging around. The second quarter was chaotic. With Jordan resting, the Jazz extended their lead. But the referees missed a crucial call. Jazz guard Howard Eisley hit a three-pointer with 1 second left on the shot clock, clearly getting the shot off in time. The officials waved it off, claiming the shot clock had expired. Replay showed Eisley had beaten the clock. Jazz coach Jerry Sloan was furious but restrained, knowing he'd already received a technical foul earlier. The missed call would loom large later. Jordan returned and kept the Bulls within striking distance, scoring 15 of his 23 first-half points in the second quarter. Malone was dominating inside too strong for Luke Longley and Dennis Rodman. The Bulls went into halftime trailing 49-45. They were hanging around, but barely. Jordan was carrying them, but could he do it for another 24 minutes? The third quarter was more of the same. The Bulls couldn't create separation. Malone continued scoring. Jordan answered every Jazz run with baskets of his own, but the Bulls couldn't take the lead. They entered the fourth quarter trailing 66-61, 5 points down with 12 minutes to play. This was it. Jordan opened the fourth quarter drawing contact and hitting free throws. He scored quickly to cut the lead to 3. The Bulls' defense tightened. Jordan hit another shot over Shannon Anderson. The Bulls were within 1. Then Malone took over, scoring inside. The Jazz extended the lead back to 5. Jordan answered. The game became a personal duel. Jordan versus Malone, the aging legend against the league MVP, each scoring in succession, neither able to deliver the knockout blow. With 2:07 remaining, the Bulls trailed 83-79. Jordan drove to the basket and scored a layup to cut the lead to 2. Utah called timeout. When play resumed, Stockton missed a shot. Jordan grabbed the rebound, brought the ball up, and was fouled with 59.2 seconds left. He made both free throws. The game was tied, 83-83. Utah worked the ball around the perimeter. Stockton found space on the left wing and hit a three-pointer with 41.9 seconds remaining. Jazz 86, Bulls 83. The Delta Center erupted. The Jazz were 3 points away from forcing Game 7. The Bulls called timeout. In the huddle, Bill Jackson drew up an isolation play for Jordan. Jordan told his teammates, "I'm going to get us 2 here, then we'll get a stop and win it." The confidence was typical Jordan, but the Bulls needed execution. They inbounded to Jordan, who drove to the basket through traffic and scored a layup with 37 seconds left. Jazz 86, Bulls 85. 1-point game. The Jazz brought the ball up. Malone passed to Karl in the post. Malone backed down Dennis Rodman on the left block, 18.9 seconds remaining. Malone turned to shoot. Jordan, who'd been guarding Bryon Russell on the weak side, darted over and reached in. He stripped the ball cleanly from Malone's hands, the perfect steal. Jordan grabbed the loose ball and sprinted up court, while the Delta Center crowd gasped in shock. Their MVP, their franchise's greatest player, had been stripped in the biggest moment of his career. Jordan crossed half court with the ball, the clock ticking down. The Jazz frantically set their defense. Jordan waved off his teammates, signaling he wanted isolation. Bryon Russell guarded him. 10 seconds remaining. Jordan dribbled slowly to his right, letting the clock wind down. 6 seconds. Jordan made his move, a quick crossover dribble to his right. As he crossed over, his left hand made contact with Russell's hip, not a violent push, but contact that helped create separation. Russell stumbled slightly. Jordan rose up at the free throw line, extended, 20 feet from the basket. He released the shot with 5.2 seconds left. The ball arced toward the basket. Jordan's right hand stayed elevated in his follow-through, his signature pose, watching his shot. The Delta Center fell silent, 19,911 fans holding their breath. The ball dropped through the net, barely disturbing the cords. Bulls 87, Jazz 86. Jordan backpedaled down the court, hands still up, eyes locked on the basket he just conquered, the image burning itself into basketball history. The Jazz had one last chance. They inbounded to Stockton, who dribbled to the three-point line and launched a potential game winner. The shot missed. Ron Harper may have tipped it with his fingertips. Bulls players mobbed each other at center court. Jordan raised his arms in triumph, then fell to his knees, overcome with emotion. The Bulls had won their 6th championship in 8 years, and Jordan, at the age of 35, had delivered the most dramatic ending imaginable.
NBC announcer Bob Costas' call became legendary. Jordan with 43, Malone is doubled. They swat at him and steal it. Here comes Chicago, 17 seconds for Game 7 or for championship number 6. Jordan open, Chicago with the lead. Timeout Utah, 5.2 seconds left. Michael Jordan running on fumes with 45 points. Then, as replay showed, Costas added prophetically, "That may have been, who knows what will unfold over the next several months, but that may have been the last shot Michael Jordan will ever take in the NBA." Jordan's final stat line was mythical: 45 points on 15 of 35 shooting, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 3 steals in 44 minutes. He'd taken 35 of the Bulls' 67 shots. He'd scored or assisted on 47 of the Bulls' 87 points. Pippen had managed just 8 points. Ron Harper had scored 6. Tony Kukoc had 15. Jordan had carried the team on his back in a way rarely seen in NBA Finals history. The victory celebration was bittersweet. Everyone knew it was over. Jackson announced his retirement immediately. Jordan told reporters he was 99.9% sure he was retiring too. Pippen would be traded. The dynasty was done. But they'd gone out on top, winning a 6th championship in the most dramatic fashion possible, with Jordan hitting the championship-winning shot in the final seconds. The aftermath was chaotic. Jordan did retire, walking away at age 35 with 6 championships, 5 MVP awards, 6 Finals MVP awards, 10 scoring titles, and the best Finals clinching performance anyone had ever seen. He'd come back in 2001 to play 2 mediocre seasons for the Washington Wizards, but those seasons felt like an epilogue to a story that had ended perfectly in Salt Lake City. The debate over whether Jordan pushed off Bryon Russell on the last shot has raged for 26 years. Jazz fans insisted was an offensive foul that should have been called. Stockton said years later, without a doubt he pushed off, but added he wouldn't have called it. Russell himself said in 2009, whether he pushed off or not, he was making that shot. The consensus among neutral observers is that Jordan made slight contact but not enough to warrant a foul call in the final seconds of a championship game. Referees swallow their whistles in those moments, letting players decide outcomes rather than officials. The steal from Karl Malone is often forgotten in discussions of the last shot, but it was equally important. Malone, the reigning MVP, who'd averaged 27 points all season, had the ball in the post with less than 20 seconds left, his team up 1 point. All he had to do was score, and the Jazz would force overtime at minimum, possibly win the game. Jordan's strip was perfectly timed, clean, the kind of defensive play that only the greatest two-way players can make in the biggest moments. The cultural impact of Game 6 extended beyond basketball. The image of Jordan with his hand raised after hitting the last shot became one of sport's most iconic photographs. The photo, taken by photographer Fernando Medina, captured the moment perfectly. Jordan's follow-through, the Delta Center crowd in stunned silence behind him, the split second before everyone knew the ball was going in. The image has been reproduced millions of times on posters, T-shirts, memorabilia, becoming synonymous with clutch performance and championship poise. The 1998 Finals cemented Jordan's legacy as the greatest player in NBA history. His 5 previous championships were impressive, but winning the 6th at age 35, carrying an injured team, hitting the championship winner in the final seconds, that was transcendent. No other player had ever exited the stage with such a perfect ending. Jordan retired as a champion on his terms, with his final shot as a Bull being the most important basket of his career. For the Utah Jazz, the loss was devastating. They'd come so close 2 consecutive years, losing to Jordan's Bulls in 6 games both times.
Malone and Stockton, two of the greatest players ever at their positions, would never win a championship. The image of Malone getting stripped by Jordan in the final minute became a haunting symbol of their near misses. Malone played until 2004, Stockton until 2003, both retiring without rings. They're the greatest players never to win championships, and their legacy is forever tied to their finals losses against Jordan. The Bulls never won another championship after 1998. The team was dismantled as Krause had planned. Jackson left, Jordan retired, Pippen was traded to Houston, Rodman left. The dynasty that had dominated the 1990s ended abruptly. The decision to break up a championship team was controversial then and remains debated today. Could the Bulls have won more championships with Jordan, Pippen, and Jackson if Krause had kept them together? Probably. But the ending, as it happened, was perfect. The greatest player hitting the greatest shot to win the championship, then walking away. Hollywood couldn't have scripted it better. In 2020, ESPN released The Last Shot, a 10-part documentary about the 1997-98 Bulls season and Jordan's career. The series featured extensive behind-the-scenes footage, interviews with players and coaches, and complete context for the dynasty's final season. Game 6 was the documentary's climax, with the final episode building to Jordan's steal and shot. The documentary became a cultural phenomenon during the COVID-19 pandemic, drawing millions of viewers and introducing a new generation to Jordan's greatness. 26 years later, The Last Shot remains the most famous game winner in NBA history. Every element was perfect. The setting, road arena, hostile crowd, the stakes, championship on the line, the opponent, Hall of Fame duo desperately trying to win their first title, the execution, stealing the ball from the MVP and then hitting the game winner, and the aftermath, walking away as champion. No subsequent game winner has matched the drama or significance. Jordan's final statistics as a Bull: 6 championships in 13 seasons, 5 MVP awards, 6 Finals MVP awards, 10 scoring titles, 9 all-defensive first-team selections, career averages of 31.5 points, 6.3 rebounds, 5.4 assists. His playoff scoring average was 33.4 points, the highest in NBA history. His finals scoring average was 33.6 points. In elimination games, when the season was on the line, Jordan elevated to levels no one else could match. That's why, when everything was on the line in Game 6, no one was surprised he delivered. The comparison to other championship-winning shots is inevitable but futile. Every great shot has context that makes it special. But Jordan's last shot had something unique: finality. This was it, the last moment of the greatest dynasty of the 1990s, delivered by the greatest player who ever lived, in enemy territory, against Hall of Famers desperate for their first title. The shot didn't just win a championship, it ended an era. When Michael Jordan crossed over Bryon Russell, rose up at the free throw line extended, and released his final shot as a Chicago Bull on June 14, 1998, he wasn't just winning a basketball game, he was writing the perfect ending to the greatest career in basketball history. The ball hung in the air for what seemed like forever before dropping through the net, giving the Bulls their 6th championship and Jordan his 45th point of the night. 43 seconds earlier, he'd stripped Karl Malone, the reigning MVP, in the clutch. Now, with 5.2 seconds left, he delivered the championship winner. It was the most dramatic exit imaginable, the greatest player walking away on top, having hit the biggest shot of his career in his final game as a Bull. Because sometimes, when the stakes are highest and the pressure is suffocating, the greatest players deliver the greatest performances. And on June 14, 1998, in Salt Lake City, Utah, Michael Jordan was that player one last time.